And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first community call for this month, January 8th, 2025. If this is your first time joining one of our Dapr community calls, welcome. This is where we talk about a lot of the amazing things that are happening within the Dapr community, updates and capabilities and new things that our community members are building. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. Today, we have a very brief agenda with you. We're going to have Roberto. He's going to be talking to us about Floki, which will allow you to build agentic workflows inside of Dapr. That should be super cool. And then also we'll go through the state of Dapr survey, and then we'll do some community show and tell like we usually do. But again, if you have any questions at all, feel free to use the chat. We have leave your comments underneath the chat. We'll try and get them answered for you live. And also, if you have any thoughts or suggestions or anything of the sort, feel free to go ahead and share those with us as well. Now, with that being said, why don't Roberto, why don't you introduce yourself to folks a little bit? Let us know, who you are and what do you do?
Sure. Yes. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having me here today. So I'm Roberto Rodriguez. I'm part of the Microsoft Autonomous Defense and Protection team. I'm a principal security researcher and just passionate about AI and how to apply it to cybersecurity at the moment.
Nice.
All right.
So you're going to be talking to us about Floki. I just put your screen up. So I'm guessing you're to tell us a little bit about like what is Floki and what does it do and some of the the ways that it makes our lives easier when it comes to building these agentic workflows.
Definitely. Yes, so I can see my screen there, and thank you very much for sharing it. So first, big disclaimer. So everything that I'm going to be sharing today doesn't reflect my employer, Microsoft. It's just me, a AI cybersecurity enthusiast, trying to share my journey on like learning how to apply AI, specifically LLM-based agents, into cybersecurity. And when we talk about Floki, so this was released, I would say, like almost already 2 months. Yeah, it's gonna be almost 2 months. So you can see the link at the top. And basically, Floki is a framework to be able to build LLM-based systems, like agentic systems, for example. And it uses Dapr underneath. It's using all the components, the unified programming model, so that I could focus primarily on what it is that I want to do with this agent and not worry so much about all the connections with databases and other services. And also to be able to have this like service-like type of deployment and then be able to use it locally or also use it in the cloud. And trying to use a lot of the workflow components that already come packed with Dapr and the durable tasks underneath. And the whole idea is to provide all the tools that someone like myself as a researcher will need in order to start building, prototyping, sharing a few ideas internally with my own team, and also sharing it with the community, right? And at the end, the goal is to be able to have this like multi-agent also collaboration concept with Floki, right? So what does that mean? Just to kind of get back to the basics of what an agent is, specifically an LLM-based agent. This is a system where now you as a human interacts with a model, with a language model that understands language very well. And then you can start asking questions, but maybe some of those questions go through a process where the model is reasoning and thinking about the question or the task, is capable to figure out which actions to take based on the question. Once the action gets executed, there is context from the world that is going to then be passed back to this language model to reason and figure out if it needs to continue the loop or if probably it already achieved the objective and then responds to the user. That's kind of like the very, very high level of what an agent, LLM-based agent means. And to me, this sometimes is kind of hard to understand. So think about this as a flow, as a very basic flow where there is an input, reason over the input, act on it, observe something, and then give me something back, right? Now, this loop can be improved with, saying, once you accomplish a task, let's go back to the top and reason, and then go through the whole process again. And we can do this one time, right? So in this case, just give me the output after one loop. Or this can be this continuous loop, right? Where you have the input, the reasoning, acting, observation, reasoning again in a loop. And then when it comes to actions, you can have multiple tools that would make this agent to interact with other services or things in the outside world, right? So this is what I want you to think about, the basic flow of an agent. And when we talk about LLM-based agents, it's because we're using these models, once again, on the reasoning step, because it understands text language very well. And of course, there is a multi-model type of models right now with not only text, but you can do audio and images. This is going to be kind of like the thinking engine, the reasoning engine that is going to be added to these flows. And when we talk about acting, once again, you're using tools. You're using maybe API calls, or tools that would allow you to browse the internet, right? And this is something that the agent itself is going to trigger in order to interact once again with the outside world, right? So I want you to think about that when it comes to LLM-based AI agents and flows in general. And of course, once again, the observation is, how do you expose this system to the world, right? Okay, so thinking about agentic patterns now, this basic pattern that we just saw before, you can even simplify it and say, I can just pass the question. I wanted to generate something, and I wanted to reflect on that something. And then maybe once again, going through a whole loop until the system feels comfortable saying we were able to accomplish what it is that we wanted. But in this case, it's like it could be, for example, write a story and reflect on it and see if it actually is, I don't know, entertaining. And then the system itself, the model, will be able to gather context from the text and say, you know what, maybe I can make it better. And this kind of loop starts going on. Now, there's the concept of tool use, which is what I showed you before, where it's reasoning, it's choosing a tool, it's acting on the initial task, taking the observation, and then thinking about it if it should continue with a loop. There's another pattern, which is the planning pattern. And in this case, you are adding one step at the beginning, not only saying, think about my question and tell me what to do next. Now you're kind of saying, hey, I want you to think about it very well. And I want you to define a plan based on maybe your knowledge about the topic that I'm sharing with you. And that knowledge could be pre-trained. So it could be something that the model already knows based on everything that has been trained with. Or you can fine-tune the model and it would be context maybe from your organization, etc. Right? And then the last pattern is the multi-agent collaboration, where now you can have reflection, planning, tool use all together maybe on one system. And then maybe that system with its own tools can communicate with other systems in this whole collaboration, let's say team, right, for example. And this is where you start thinking about, for example, can I have an agent for, I don't know, that can write the story? Can I have an agent that can probably make it better? Or an agent that might probably define the marketing strategy for this story, right? And this is for, of course, so many different topics that you can apply this. In my case, for cybersecurity, it's more about what are the agents that I could define for my organization that could help me defend my organization, like a security analyst, a threat intelligence analyst, a malware analyst, etc. Right? So when you start thinking about this right away, for those that are very familiar with Dapr, workflows, you're thinking, oh, okay, in these patterns, I can have tasks chaining. I can probably mix it up with fan out, fan in, or I can have this like monitoring loop where we have an agent maybe orchestrating this whole thing and waiting for some of the results and executing things based on a task that has just been executed. Right? And I want you to think about this as every single step in this workflow. You can simply have an LLM-based call, an API maybe to a, I don't know, OpenAI service. You can have like Hugging Face APIs also to the inference servers, Azure OpenAI, etc. Right? You can have any inference server in here. Or you can also have, once again, agents. So I want you to think about that, because some workflows that you can build can be simply tasks being chained, where an LLM is just being invoked to do something for you, generating content, and then you pass it to the next step. Or you can have, once again, agents with different patterns, with different tools, where that becomes maybe its own little workflow, right? So I want you to think about that every time you think about agents and LLM-based workflows. And when it comes to monitor, we wanted to figure out, what if we have a message broker and have all these agents to communicate through messages, right? And that's pretty much what we did in Floki. Floki is the research output, let's say, of thinking about agents and workflows in a way that can be using Dapr workflows, but then also all the other components that Dapr is really good at, right? Such as, can we have an agent and be able to be exposed to all the different things that Dapr comes with? Can we just swap the technology? For example, my agents require some type of memory or state in order to continue the collaboration with other agents. What if I want to use Redis, but then somebody else comes and says, hey, you know what? Change it to a different one, like Azure Cosmos DB. I don't want to change the code. And then besides, I'm just one person in this project. So trying to figure out all the different components and APIs that I need to write to all of this, it's time consuming for me, right? And then finally, once again, as I mentioned, messages. In this case, every single agent can be exposed to an environment where you could say, hey, I want to broadcast a message first to everyone in my agents team and say, let's go to Mordor, right? For those that are fans of Lord of the Rings. And then I want everybody just to be aware, like, all right, we're all going to Mordor. Okay. Now, what is the next step? And maybe we could say, hey, Gandalf, what do you think about this? And just by exchanging messages, and when each agent is done with a task, you can send the output back to everyone so that everyone is aware of like what's going on. And in this case, what you're seeing here is that the format of exchanging messages for a lot of providers or LLMs that understand messages and chat, you have the name of the application, the role, and then also the content. So being able to I would say wrap all of these components and not reinvent the wheel and build my own system to be able to orchestrate all of this has been amazing. And of course, trying to understand how we can get telemetry out of every single agent, every single action that it takes in the workflow, it's also super important. And of course, with Dapr, we can get that telemetry for every single task, right? So let's go directly to an example, right? So this is a doctor podcast, workflow, and this is something that if you go, let me see if I can go to Floki. You can go to Floki Cookbook Workflows Doctor Podcast, and in here you can see all the instructions on how to run all of this. The idea of this example is that we can have a workflow where I can take a PDF file and I could define a configuration of can I build a podcast out of this PDF file? And I want to define the host. I want to define the voice maybe that the host can have. And I could also have multiple participants, or maybe just one host, and then just do the whole podcast. And then be able to give me a dialogue being generated by an LLM, and then also be able to generate audio after I get the dialogue that was generated by an LLM. So in this case, we're using LLM-based calls to generate text, and we're also using the context of taking text and then generating audio. So that's exactly what I did in here. This takes some time, so I pretty much already run it in here, but I want you to kind of like see like a little bit what the workflow does. So I'm going to probably close this. I'm going to go to doc. Oh, I'm going to go to the podcast in here, workflow script. And I want you to take a look at this, how we're doing this with Floki. Floki has created wrappers around workflows and activities. The wrapper for the activities in particular is to allow the simplification of what if I just want to have an activity that has a prompt and that simply acts on that prompt, instead of having multiple classes or modules that I will have to use in my activity to be able to execute an LLM-based call or task. And this, you can see all the different steps. So the first step is let's just read the config file. Let's download the paper, and let's split the paper, and then let's generate the transcript. And then at the end, we can convert the transcript to audio. So the fun part in here will be going to the generate transcript right here. And that's pretty much what the call with Floki now is. A simple task with a parameter or directly text, where you can use also the task or activity arguments in order to be parameters that you can use inside of the prompt, so that once the initial steps have been executed, I simply run this, generates my transcript, and then I can just generate my audio, right? So once I run this workflow, which all the instructions are also in the README file, I can show you what that would look like if I go to, which by the way, it's amazing to out of the box being able just to see what happens in every single step of my workflow. It's amazing, right? It's something that I know that a lot of other frameworks are actually working on building their own implementation of not only workflows, but how telemetry is displayed, etc. Right? So as you could see in here, this is capturing the whole flow of being able to download the document, read it, and you can see this kind of like loop that is generated, because when we read the document, we can split the document by pages, and this document has 7 pages. So let's just process every single page. Let's make it part of the prompt, and let's ask the LLM, can you please generate a dialogue with the host and the participants? And let me show you what the dialogue would look like at the end. So at the end, by using also structured LLM based calls, you could have something like this, where you say, John Doe is the host, is welcoming everyone to the podcast. And then you can see right away, based on the prompt, we're saying, make sure that every single participant it's introduced, or at least it's saying hi, all the way to every single page, creating a dialogue. And then, of course, at the end, being able to say, thank you, bye, it was amazing. Let's just hope for the next one to be another great episode. Why do I do this? And by the way, we have the podcast in here, like 13 minutes of podcast. And in the document, we have a link where you can hear the podcast. I don't want to play it through here right now, but the idea would be, as a researcher, I have to read research papers every day. I would love to work out and also listen to the papers, but be able to extract the context that I usually would extract from every single research paper, right? So I can automate a lot of that process, capture the information that I would love to hear, and then of course I can go back to the document and then read it. But at least I'm automating, expediting this process by using the workflow capabilities with the integrated LLM-based tasks with Floki. And so I was gonna ask, do we still have time for the last demo, or?
Yeah, we have time. Go for it.
Okay, I didn't want to take a lot of the time in here, but
no, go
anyways,
for
it. So that was like the initial idea. Once again, an LLM-based workflow. This is a typical task chaining, and then a couple of loops, right? Some processing of the final output, and then I can just run this every single day. I also have, for example, recently what I did, for those that would love to explore this idea too, is I built a client with Floki that allows me to download research papers from Arxiv. And here is where a lot of the papers that are sharing the community, and also sharing the community, do have ways to query all this information. So I can plug this into my Doctor podcast and simply say, I would love to read research papers of these specific categories, and then just run this workflow every day. And I can't wait to schedule the workflows also here. Okay, so that's the first example. Now, the other one that I wanted to share today is the concept of the multi-agent collaboration workflow. So we're going from task chaining with some loops to a more event-driven type of workflow. It still has some steps where we want to make sure that we capture the basic idea, high level, how this needs to operate, but it's going to be also a little bit non-deterministic, because now we're having an LLM to say, you are communicating with a couple of agents. Every single agent has its own profile, its own tasks, its own tools. So everything is in text. What if the agent can actually decide, the agent with an LLM, decide who speaks next, right? So So that's the concept that we're trying to have in here, and the way how we do this. So let's just go to cookbook in the repo, workflows, multi-agent, and then let me show you something here first. So we're using the same components that for those that, of course, this is the Dapr Community Call, so you guys are pretty familiar with how to deploy multiple services, applications with Dapr. So what I'm doing in here is I'm creating 3 different agents, a Hobbit, a Wizard, and an Elf. And if I go to services, let's go to the Hobbit. Actually, let's go to Elf. And let's go to the app in here. Floki allows you to initialize an agent within a specific agentic pattern. The ones that we saw before, I'm using the tool use pattern, which allows me to say, give me a task. I'm going to have probably tools that are assigned to me, and I can choose the tool that is assigned to me for the task. Or if the task does not require a tool, I will just reply to you directly, right? And Floki allows you also to define what is the role of this agent, the name, the goal. And this is all going to be packed in the agent prompt, the system prompt, so that we can provide some type of, I would say, profile once again. Like, we want to make sure that this agent acts only on things that it is supposed to do based on its goal and based on its instructions. And the orchestrator is going to read all of this and say, all right, if we want to protect the ring, we better, right, talk to Legolas, for example, right? And then in here in the backend, I'm also using Dapr fast API integrations, so that I could also expose my agents as services, like through APIs, right? But in this case, also every single service is just exchanging messages with a message broker, and every single agent is going to be also subscribed to a topic. And in this case, the topic that all these agents are subscribed to by default, it's a topic with its own name, for example, like Legolas topic. So when the orchestrator says, I want Legolas to execute a task, I'll just send the message to the topic, and then Legolas will just pick it up and then act on it. And once it is done acting on it, sends the message back to everybody, broadcasts the message, and then the conversation continues. That's kind of like the idea of every single agent as part of a multi-agent workflow. So you can see how easy it is to define an agent in here. And now let me show you what the workflow looks like. And I have a couple of workflows, so that way people don't use LLMs right away. But the fun, of course, is with LLMs. So I do have a specific service that is going to be for the orchestrator. It kind of has a similar similar wrapper or initialization. But now let's go to the actual code in here. So if you go to Floki and you go to agents, workflows, we have the LLM workflow. And what it does right here, it's very simple. So we take an input, we broadcast the message, or just get the initial message, broadcast the message to everyone, and then we dive into this loop where we could select the next speaker. And this select the next speaker, if we go to that action, for example, it's going to take all the agents' metadata that is going to be saved in a Redis database as part of the state. And then it's going to be able to, put it as part of a prompt and say, hey, I want you to, based on the context and all the agents that you're interacting with, who's supposed to be speaking next. That's pretty much what this whole thing does, right? And that's it. And then it just goes into this whole loop just to continue the conversation. So let's start this in here. So I'm already in the cookbook, workflows, multi-agent, Lord of the Rings. And we're going to say Dapr. Sorry. Let me just Dapr run. I think it was. Oh, yeah, right, Dapr. There you go. Yeah. So this is going to initialize all the agents. So as you can see that, so for example, this is one example of registering. This is the workflow LLM. This is going to be the elf, be initialized, the wizard, right? So all these services are going to start. And then at the end, we do have pretty much all the agents also with actor-based integration, pretty much sharing that they're healthy at the moment. And then let's just send a message to the orchestrator. So we can go to the example cookbook. Let's go to README. And in the README, you guys can see that we can just directly send a message to the workflow. And demo guts. I tested the audio this morning, but not this one. So let's see how this one go. And so that one was able to send the message. It is the message was successfully published to Gandalf because it was picked as the first person to talk to. And then we can see, let me just make this bigger. Sorry, guys. Let's see. We can see that as the conversation is happening through every single agent, you can see that there is the user and assistant typical conversation. But in this case, is the Hobbit, for example, talking to, in this case, if we go all the way up, Gandalf has started the conversation. So then the next speaker was the Hobbit. So whatever Gandalf said initially is going to be passed to everyone. And then if Hobbit or Frodo is supposed to speak, then Frodo takes that context from what Gandalf has said, and then it's generating new content as if he was talking to Gandalf, right? So this loop with LLMs pretty much would be your typical multi-agent collaboration through chat messages. And this has been super useful to apply it to multiple scenarios. And all of this is possible, as you can see, with Floki and Dapr underneath, right? So if we go, just to finish, to here again, let me go back to Zipkin, find a trace. I think I should be able to see. Yeah, a minute ago. There you go. So this is the one that just happened. And then we can see the process input, message, broadcast, select next speaker, and then select next speaker, and then it stops. So as you can see the flows in here, the non-deterministic part is like who speaks next, right? And the reason why you see only two things is because by default, a workflow like this, I set it to only be limited to 2 interactions. You can make it to 10 interactions or several interactions, but at the same time, we also would want to maybe stop this based on a specific output, based on a tool that is being used to say, let's all stop the conversation. Or we can also add a human in the loop to be able to maybe stop this based on whatever the agents are doing in this case. And in every single workflow that we build, we also can use the Dapr workflow capabilities to have the human in the loop, which is super important today because a lot of this is fun, but it's really tricky to make it very stable. And with that, that's pretty much everything I wanted to show with you today. Once again, you can follow me on Twitter, and this is the link for the project Floki. So thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thanks, Roberto. I had tons of questions for you. Like,
Yeah, we have lots of questions.
We have lots of questions. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and also for the folks that are watching us live, if you all have any questions that you'd like to ask to Roberto, please feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we'll make sure that we get those answered live for you. So the first question I had for you was, so Floki is a framework for agentic frameworks. So if I think about other things that are happening in the ecosystem, would you say it's similar to something like LangChain, semantic kernel type framework, which are more language specific, but more so built for Dapr? Would you kind of categorize it like that?
That's a great question. Yes. So I would say LangChain has multiple components, right? So LangChain, so just to focus on LangChain for now, right? So LangChain has all the core components to initialize an agent, define a tool, right? Connect to a vector database locally, maybe. They have a lot of different capabilities. Floki also does a lot of that. Part of this is because I also wanted to learn all the internals of every single component. Now, LangGraph is the concept to define workflows, right, for LangChain. The big difference, in my opinion, first, is that they're building their own implementation of what that workflow should look like, in my opinion. So they're rebuilding the whole thing, right? But then one thing that they don't follow that, in my opinion, Dapr follows. First, Dapr already has successfully implemented what a workflow should be with durable tasks, etc. Right? But at the same time, is all the integrations of connecting with multiple services or like resources, right? Without changing the code. Every single component in frameworks like LangChain, they have to write their own module to interact with the Redis, to interact with Azure Cosmos DB, and any other service that you can see. There is a lot of different things that something like an agentic workflow you can actually use. So Dapr, in my opinion, with Floki on the top of Dapr and putting it all together, simplifies all this swapping of components. And at the same time, the workflows that come from Dapr already can be integrated with things like actor bases already internally, but you could also have every agent to be an actor in the whole workflow. I don't see that so much in these other frameworks like LangChain or Llama Index, and a lot of them are reinventing what it is to define a task in a workflow, etc.
Right.
Yeah, I've got a question. I mean, what's super cool about this is you've sort of built a framework that sits on top of Dapr workflows and defined an agent type and things like this. So if people wanted to write their own agent and use it together, they can come and use this framework. And I mean, maybe you could just go back and look at a moment at maybe that agent class, and can you give it a list of tools and say, here's a list of tools that you can use? I mean, how would someone define their own agent?
Yes, that's a great question. So, for example, we have in the cookbook, I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. So we have this, for example, the tool call agent, right? This is following the tool pattern. And in this agent, you can initialize the agent. You can define your tools here on the left. Floki has the concept of an agent tool. And it's pretty much, you can just define a class. You define the methods of your class for what it is that tool needs to do. In this case, I'm trying to communicate with the weather APIs. And at the end, if you define a run method, you could just make the agent understand, oh, I can run this tool this way. What Floki does, it takes these classes, so the user doesn't have to create a type of tool, like a new way to build tools. Just give me a class with the right methods. Floki takes these classes and it's going to process them in a format and then outputs them in a format that then models like OpenAI models and other models that understand tool calling, you will be able to receive it in the right format. So going back to the tool call, what we do in here is we define the agent, and all you have to do is pass those classes that we have defined in this tools script, right?
Yeah.
And then at the end, you can see I ask a question to the agent, what is the weather in Paris? And right away it says, okay, we need to use the weather forecast tool. That's what the LLM does. It's going to pick the right tool based on the context of the tool. So the context is going to be the tool name, description, the arguments, the type of input also for the tool is going to allow the LLM to say, I would choose that tool and I will run it this way. And then at the end, we can just run the tool. So that's how easy with Floki it is to initialize an agent with any tools that you want to.
So this is doing all the heavy lifting of translating a kind of a general API call like to weather into the format needed for the LLM to send it as a prompt to whichever model it's sending it to in order to generate a response.
That's correct. And then we can pack this agent and make it part of a workflow. So for example, if we build like an assistant or a workflow for someone that wants to, go on vacation, right? Take a trip. You could say, I want to go to this place, and you can trigger the weather agent and figure out if in that place recently, what is the weather or what is the weather today? So there is a lot of that capability that gets abstracted by having Floki initializing these agents with tools and then making them part of a workflow. Right?
Yes. So then in Floki, you have a workflow class as well, and which an orchestrator workflow that coordinates the agents. So then does someone just use that workflow orchestrator, or is it just any workflow class that you now write?
Yes, that's a good question. So let me show you just with the Doctor Podcast, I guess, workflow. So you defining workflows in Floki is the similar way that you would define a workflow with Dapr today if you want to build your own. So as you can see, we initialize a Dapr, what is my workflow? Here it is, my workflow app. and this is coming from Floki. So Floki has its workflow app application class, and this is a wrapper around the typical workflows and everything in Dapr. And the only reason why I did that is because I wanted to add functionality and remove a lot of the extra things that people will have to do to be able to, trigger things with LLMs, for example. So as you can see, we define the workflow as any other workflow in Dapr, and then you call your activities the same way how you call your activities. The only difference is that if I go to, let me go to once again to this task, for example. I created the concept of a task on the top of the activity, kind of saying that a task will have a specific goal, and there will be context that will be passed to the task for an LLM or an agent to be able to take and process.
Right.
So this is how we simplify the whole thing with Floki task. Yeah.
Gotcha. That makes sense. One of the things I was wondering as you're kind of going through that, if I wanted to build tools that use other Dapr APIs, right? I'm guessing I could just incorporate, again, like my different building blocks, like my state storage or messaging thing. Like if I wanted to do that manually, I'm guessing that's pretty easy for .NET for Dapr developers to do.
Yes, that's a great question, and I'm working on that a little bit. So, for example, I guess hopefully this answers the question. So I do have a, let's say, Dapr state store class for memory, right? For example, and in this case, pretty much what it does is just allows me to tell the agent, hey, you can use, for example, right? You can use a basic Python list to keep all your messages, all your chats that you're having. You can have a vector store for that if you wanted to, or let's just also use a Dapr store. And in here is where you can swap based on the component. You can point to Redis, to Azure Cosmos DB. So the agent itself will have now this class so that folks that use Dapr state stores or stores could simply use it and point to whatever they're using at the moment with Dapr, right? So that's one capability, I guess, that I'm trying to apply for all the components that an agent will have, so that I don't have to continuously be building all these connectors, right? So,
yeah, that makes sense. And then we have a question coming in from chat really quick.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull it up first. And the question is, can I use Floki with .NET Stack? And
that's a great question.
Let me
Sorry,
ask you, let me make it more generic, but like, because Dapr supports multiple languages, right?
Yeah.
So in the other languages that Dapr supports, can we use Floki?
I would say we can build the .NET implementation. This is full Python using the Dapr, this one. So in Python packages. So I would say that translating Floki to a .NET implementation, I think it wouldn't be as hard, especially the main components, right? Not all the features that we have, but at least the Dapr components, I think it would be pretty straightforward, hopefully, to do, but not .NET at the moment. I wanted to build, this started as a POC, and then it turned out to be a framework. So hopefully in the future, I could also write some .NET in here.
Yeah, I think what you have here looks great. And when you think about what sometimes Dapr developers expect, right? They're like, hey, I can use any language, any platform, right?
Yeah.
So again, bigger than just one language, I can imagine sometime folks are going to be like, hey, can I use Java? Can I use this? Like we're going to get these types of questions, right? But like you said, like, I feel like this is early days, and it's a great way for us to, as a community, look and share our opinions and thoughts about that and see how we can help it evolve going forward in the future.
Yes.
It's certainly a pretty cool way of using Dapr, because the way I look at it is this agentic systems are very much a distributed systems problem. Yes.
Yeah.
And Dapr solving a lot of the distributed systems problems already of being able to do message passing, long-running durable workflows, durable state, synchronous and asynchronous calls, ideally sort of fits into this. So I think it's an amazing example, especially the way you walk through the different patterns of how it fits. And fits exceedingly well. So if we can turn this into a general purpose API with the help of the community and get the excitement around it all, that would
be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. So a couple more questions real quick before I let you go.
Sure. Yeah.
When a lot of folks are building these LLM-based applications, right, you often hear them talk about RAG and like bringing in their own data. Is there anything particular in Floki that assists to that scenario, or do you mostly just rely on whatever LLM they're plugging into to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Floki, as a framework overall, has the concept of, so if we go to source Floki storage, and we have, for example, vector stores, where so a lot of the RAG techniques is how can we generate embeddings from our text, right? Put it into a vector database and do similarity search or any other hybrid like search, etc. With Floki, I'm trying to define components like, let's use, for example, Postgres. And in Postgres, what I do is I define embedding functions. And these embedding functions at the moment use sentence transformer embedder. So there is also if we go back to the code, document embedders, we have sentence transformers. And here is where you can define, for example, your open models, so models that you can download locally and just have everything locally, right? Or you can have OpenAI models like the text embedding ADA002 to do the embeddings. So to the question, I guess, would be, you can use any OpenAI embeddings, or you can use any model available through sentence transformers, which is going to be connected to Hugging Face models, right? So I expose these vector stores to use those embedding functions. And I think that those two embedding functions will cover, I would say, the initial models that I've been testing with paid models and also with open models that I could just use locally without sending data outside, right, to generate embeddings. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So in your demo, did you use OpenAI or did you which?
That's a great question. I'm using by default I'm using OpenAI for my demos. For generating a podcast dialogue, that's structure output from OpenAI GPT-4o models, and GPT-4o model also is used for all the agents in the multi-agent collaboration. And all of that is set by default, but then people could also set their own models as well. Where in Floki, for example, I know that Dapr is working on so for 115 has the conversational API.
Yes.
So if we go to Floki, we have LLM, for example, OpenAI. So I have the audio endpoints, chat endpoints, and embedding endpoints. And in Hugging Face, we also have the chat endpoints from Hugging Face Hub, APIs. So the idea, I guess, in here would be, once the API is available from Dapr, I can start repurposing that into these clients that I'm building at the moment, so I can communicate. Right?
I see. So you could turn those general classes that you have there into components and just use the components for Hugging Face and use the Dapr component for OpenAI that is coming in 115 for the generative, the conversation API.
Exactly. So I can't wait for that. So I could start taking a lot of this code that I've already written, and maybe I could repurpose it with the API that comes with Dapr. And that's what I would love to do, because once again, it's only one person building all of this, and the more help that, the better.
Yes, it's a great opportunity for anyone in the community to jump on that.
Yeah.
Nice. Yep. So for folks that are watching that want to get started with Floki today, I'm guessing you had a slide up that had your, the repo. There you go. So there's a repo. They can message you on X and the different social things. Is there a minimum version of Dapr that's required to run Floki?
Great question. Right now is 1.14 at the moment. It's the one that this is built with. So I would say that would be at least yes. I think it is in the requirements, right?
And which demo would someone start with if they wanted to get going? So using 114, and then which one would they start on? Would they start with that demo that you showed for the podcast? Would that be a good one, or is there another demo they can get going with?
Yeah, I think that the podcast workflow, there is another one too. So for example, I have a couple of basic like structured workflows where all you're saying is, this is also something that is part of Floki, where you can have this basic task where, once again, this is a prompt and you can pass an output type, such as a Pydantic object. And this is pretty much making sure that the LLM is producing structured output. This is a very basic workflow using, as you can see, already Floki task type of implementation.
Yes.
So there's a lot of basic stuff. And if you want to go crazy, Dr. Podcast, and if you want to go a little bit more the agentic, like event-driven workflow, then I would say the Lord of the Rings one. I think it's super basic as well.
Super good. Yeah, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Roberto, thank you so much. I am going to take your screen off really quickly and switch back to mine. But like we said, like, folks, here is the, all the social things and the link to the repo. So if anyone wants to check out Floki, get involved, maybe open an issue or just kind of share some feedback, feel free to do so here. Roberto, you're also in the Discord channel as well, right? So if folks want to interact with you on the Dapr Discord channel, they can also do that, correct?
Yes, they can do that. Yeah, feel free to ping me there. I took a break like a couple months ago, so I was out and I saw all the messages, but now I'm back, so I can reply and talk to anyone who would love to talk about Floki and how we can make it better. I think it would be great to see what the community thinks about it. Yeah,
great. Fantastic. Okay. All right. I'm going to switch your screen off and we're going to keep it moving forward a little bit. We just have a few things to cover before we close. First off, we're going to talk about the State of Dapr survey. So State of Dapr survey, I believe we do this once a year. So right now we're doing the 2024 survey. It is 2025, yes, but like we're collecting folks' thoughts and opinions and responses from what their last year of using Dapr was. If you're interested in getting the previous year's report, which would be the 2023 report, it's also available for you to download so you could read and see what folks are doing and what they're building and some of their thoughts and opinions out there. But we are hoping that as you're watching this, definitely head over to the link that's at the bottom of this of the slide, and please fill out the survey for us, and because we'd love to know what are you building and where would you like to see us take Dapr in the future. So definitely please assist us with sharing your thoughts and opinions there.
It should be fantastic so we can share it with everyone in the community.
Yeah, exactly. And for a little bit of show and tell, we have some events that are coming up. So Solace is having a community lightnings talk day. That's January 15th. That's going to be next week, Tuesday or Wednesday, sometime next week. And it looks like Alice from Diagrid is going to be there, going to be talking about Dapr with Solace. And then there's also BitBash is having a haunted edition. I have never heard about this, but this looks amazing because I love all these Halloween themed things. But looks like they're going to have free workshops. And we are going to have some of our Dapr meteors. So Edwin and Sen are going to be there. They're going to be doing Dapr workshop, Dapr microservice applications the easy way. So if folks are around and able to attend any of these sessions, definitely make sure you check out some of the Dapr related content that's going to be available at some of these places. Also, we have some blog posts that came out on Dapr in healthcare, building pluggable components. And then Simon also has his microservices with Dapr part 10 of his series that he's been writing. So we'll make sure all these links are available in the description of the video, and we'll also be posting them in our Dapr Discord channel. So again, another plug, if you want to interact with us, please go ahead and join the Discord channel, and you'll see all of these links to resources and whatnot. Tons of Dapr video here, as you can probably tell. On csharp.tv, looks like Rodrigo has an amazing series here covering various aspects of Dapr. And looks like we also have one from Dapr from GopherCon 2024 that talks about standardizing errors in Go when it comes to Dapr. And for folks that don't know, Dapr, at least the core Dapr, is written in Go. So if folks again are looking for other ways to contribute, maybe you might not be a .NET developer or a Python developer, maybe you're a Go developer, you can contribute to Dapr by writing some Go code, because that is what Dapr is written in. Again, tons more videos happening. A couple of weeks ago, we had the 115 celebration by Diagrid. That was on December 10th. The video is now available online for folks to go ahead and check out. 1.15 at this moment is still in release candidate, not fully released yet, but hopefully we'll get that, sooner than later. And another option for, another opportunity for folks to kind of come in and, try out some of the releases and some of the pre-releases before they come out to share their opinions about, whether it works with their solutions or not. But you can definitely go ahead and check out that video if you want to learn about some of the additional APIs and new capabilities and enhancements that will be coming when 1.15 is released. Again, tons more Dapr stuff going on. .NET Amsterdam, tons of social posts across YouTube and LinkedIn and all these fun places. Also, one of the things that we want to do is recognize some of our community members as they're posting in Discord. We have folks in there that are answering questions, helping other folks solve solutions and just be more productive with Dapr. So I definitely want to shout out Alice and George, who have been in here, just kind of helping folks with like some of the different problems that they've been having. Also, a little bit of a sad, sweet sorrow kind of thing. Anu, who's one of our community managers last year, has moved on to, take on some other challenges. And so now we're short one community manager. So if anyone's interested in joining us in becoming one of the 3 community managers here for the Dapr project, definitely feel free to let us know. Reach out to me or Mark, or again, reach out to us in the Discord channel or in our Dapr/community repo that's on GitHub. And let us know if you're interested and how you'd like to, be able to contribute if you are. Like we mentioned before, again, if you want to join our Dapr community, we do have Discord. We have these community calls that we do bi-weekly, so we have them every other week. And then we also have badges that folks absolutely love. So if you contribute to the docs, if you can do presentations and all these different types of things, these are all just different ways that you can help out with the Dapr community. But if you're interested in learning about how, what some of these things are and how you can get involved, head over to dapr.io/community, the link that's available on the top right side of your screen right now. And then you can gain some more information about all these different ways that you can be a part of Dapr, and ways that don't necessarily always have to do with writing code, right? Like there's different ways you can contribute to open source outside of writing code. And so here's just, a few of the ways that you could help out with the Dapr project specifically. For all of you that have been watching today, you all get badges. What a badge. We do these badges through a company called HoloPen for, different ways of just kind of showing our appreciation for you and saying thank you back to the community for, again, your continued support of the project. So for everyone, we have this community supporter badge that's available. So if you take your, your phone, your camera, and you scan that QR code, you will all, get this free badge. Well, all our badges are free, but you'll get access to this particular badge here for everyone. And then, like I mentioned, we have other badges as well. If you contribute to the docs, we have a docs writer badge. And if you do presentations, we have a Dapr presenter badge. And we're going to be working with some, coming up with some other badges as well as we go forward. But again, this is just one small way for us to say thank you and how much we appreciate all of you supporting us here at, the Dapr project. And with that being said, I think that's it. Again, thank you all for joining us. We do these community calls every other week. Again, talking about all the fun stuff that the community is building, all the stuff that's happening within the Dapr project. So, Roberto, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all of you for watching. Mark, do you have any last bits of words or wisdoms that you want to add before we go?
No, I just say that I'm super excited by Floki and seeing all the excitement around getting Dapr to build agentic AIs and continue to help contribute to the community. Dapr 1.15 is coming out soon and should be done by the end of this month. So let's kind of start. I would suggest that the RCs for that just coming out. I think there's RC3 that's being published today, and please download it and try it out and give us your feedback.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you, Mark, so much. And again, thank you all for watching. And this has been another Dapr Community Call. Hope you all take care and Happy New Year. Bye.
Thank you.